Jeremiah chapter 17. Jeremiah chapter 17. Jeremiah chapter 17, starting at verse 5. Let me know when you are there.
What is it, Joe?
Jeremiah 17, verse 5.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Everybody there?
I'm there.
Okay, good. Jeremiah 17, verse 5. Okay. Thus saith the Lord, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, and a salt land, and not inhabited. Blessed is a man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. Father, please give me the right words tonight to speak to the hearts of these people. Help me to be the messenger, Lord. Help me to be a hose and not a bucket. In Jesus' name, amen. So, one thing to always pay attention to, when it says, Thus saith the Lord, that means God is talking to us. And he says, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm. So cursed or afflicted by misery is a man that trusts in himself, and maketh flesh his arm, or maketh himself his strength, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. Now, that word departeth literally means to turn off. So, afflicted by pain and miserable is the man that trusts in his own strength and turns his heart off from God. A lot of times, in life, we want to think that we've got control of everything that we got going on in front of us. And naturally, as human beings, that's what we want. We want control. But see, God's warning us already. He said cursed. And people generally hear the word curse like, ooh, I don't want nothing to do with that. But every time you walk out your door, every time that you do something in your own strength, you're causing yourself your own afflicted misery, and you don't even know it. The best thing we can always do is to trust in God. So he continues, he says, For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh. The heath is like a small shrub in desert places, in arid places, that doesn't grow very high, doesn't produce any kind of fruit, and it's just grasping for moisture that's probably not there. And spiritually, there's a lot of people in this world that are in that position. So I ask you tonight, who do you trust? Do you trust in you, or do you trust God? Because you see, when we trust in ourselves, we're like the heath in the desert. We have a small root system, and we're not gaining any moisture on our own. God does take care of the people that are spiritually arid. He still gives them a place to live and something to eat. And at some point or another, he is taking care of them, sustaining their lives. But as far as the heath goes, you're not going to grow very high. You're not going to be fruitful in anything. And you're going to dwell in places that are parched. You're going to be thirsty all the time. I see a lot of people that are, they have a lot of money, or they have a lot of fame, or they have, a lot of cars, possessions, whatever it may be, or they get to have what they want when they want to have it, but they still seem so unsatisfied. And see, the reason for that is because they're not trusting God. They're seeking out God in places God is not. You see, God is not in our possessions. He is not in our He's not in our clothes. He's not in our music, unless we're listening to Christian music. But He's not in these things that we're seeking after if we're seeking things outside of Him. And we remain thirsty all the time. I know in my life, I wanted to do it in my understanding, on the way I wanted to do it. And I wanted to do it of my own interpretation. You see, the person that's cursed, this man that trusts in himself or trusts in man, he trusts in philosophy. He gets his truth from himself, and that's where he derives his truth from. And boy, that's a bad way to live. Because later down in verse 9, he says, The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So, the heart is deceitful above all things. So our hearts will deceive ourselves like, you gain some monetary value or whatever it may be, and you feel satisfaction for a moment, but that satisfaction never lasts because it's not eternal, but the God that created us is. And anytime you're thirsty, he will always give you something to drink. So, how many people here, like, bought something at Sears or Home Depot or whatever it may be, and you just tear it right out of the box and start building it, and you don't even read the instructions? How many people have done that? Okay, most of us. So, and you get in the middle of it, and you get towards the end, and you realize, I probably should have read the instructions. That might have been a good idea. So then you start tearing it back apart, and you start actually reading what the diagram says, and you follow the instructions, and then you're able to build it properly and have the product the way it was designed for, correct? We're exactly the same way. We do the exact same thing. You see, he gives us instructions on how to live, but see, we want to put the instructions over here and say, I'm going to build this the way I choose to build it. And when we choose to build it the way we want to build it, we end up building it the wrong way. And then we go back to the instructions, we set them down and say, you know what, God, I guess you were right. Show me how to do this. So, verse 7, he says, blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the water. So, that means that God will water us. He will give us the right nourishment that we need. He says, that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh. So, this tree, the tree is obviously in some kind of heat. But see, a tree that's rooted properly, that draws moisture out of the ground, because God supplied the moisture, doesn't even pay any attention to the heat, doesn't make a difference, and that's what he wants us to do. He said, trust me, I will give you the moisture, I will give you the nourishment you need, just trust me, and I will help you grow. He says, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought. So, shall not be careful means shall not be full of care when it's a drought. Meaning, you won't care about the times where it's not so, when you're starting to get thirsty a little bit, you're not focused on the thirst, you're still focused on God. See, when we choose not to focus on God and we start, oh man, I'm really thirsty, God, I don't have as much money as I did, or, I'm not doing as well as I was, we're cursing ourselves and we don't even realize it. We can't be fruitful if we're not trusting in the one that makes us fruitful. And he says, and neither shall cease from yielding fruit. So this tree not only grows tall, has nourishment, but also will not stop yielding fruit as long as you trust that God is your source, you'll continue to produce fruit. Go to Psalms chapter 1. Psalms 1. I guess I'm just going to start at verse 1. Because this is actually one of the most prominent places in the Bible that RU promotes, that Reformers Unanimous promotes. It says, is that right there? Okay, good. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of the sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Sound familiar? That bringeth forth his fruit in his season, and his leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The tree in the last one was a her, and this one's a he, so he spoke to men and women. Amen? So, he says, she'll be like a tree planted by rivers of water, and bringeth forth fruit in his season. Seasons are time. So, sometimes, we have to wait for the fruit to come. We live in a society where we want everything right now. And I have news for everybody that God sometimes holds these things back. We don't get them right when we want them because God wants us to seek him and not the stuff, not the fruit. The fruit comes when you plug in to the source that gives you the fruit. And he says, and his leaf also shall not wither. So when you stay connected to God, your leaf won't wither. That means if you continue trusting in God, you will not grow weary. You won't, and sometimes, you do get a little worn out from serving the Lord. Sometimes you get a little worn out from work. Sometimes you get a little worn out, taking care of the kids or whatever it may be. But if you continue trusting God, he promises that you won't fade away. So, and he says the ungodly are not so. So this is the cursed man. He says the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. There's, if I screw this up, forgive me, but the chaff is like a casing around this, I believe it's of the wheat. And it's so light that the wind is able to just blow it wherever it wants. So when we have no substance to us, and we don't trust in God, and we're trusting in our own righteousness, or trusting in ourselves for the truth, we're just going to get blown by the wind. He says, therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. So really, there's only two options. You either trust God or you don't. You don't trust God, you're going to be cursed. You don't trust God, there's going to be consequences to what you've chosen, the path you've chose to take. There's some people that talk about, I guess I don't want to get too complicated with this, but basically, who are you going to trust today? Who do you trust? Who do you go to for truth? Because in reality, you can go one of two places. Because people say, "Oh, there's many other gods." No, there's only one God. I say that with full confidence because I know Him and I love Him. And then there's man. You can either go to God or go to man for your truth. So I beg every person to answer this question to yourself. You don't have to answer me, but do you go here or do you go here? Is this where you find your truth, or is this where you find your truth? I got news for everybody. There's some truth on here because this is in here somewhere, but there's not much truth in here. All you're going to find is pain, affliction, misery, vexation, and the other word for that is cursed. So in reality, when you trust in these things that man made, that man gave us, we're cursed. Go to Psalms 118. Psalm 118 and verse 8. Psalm 118 and verse 8. They say this is the middle of the Bible. It's a little, I don't know if it is or not. Depends on what translation you're using. I use the authorized version, the King James, the Word of God. So we're in the middle. It says, and it is better to trust in the Lord than put confidence in man. I don't know how many people in here have come out of drug addiction. I don't know how many people in here have been successful by their own standards and then fallen short when somebody else undercut them because they weren't doing what they wanted them to do. Or I don't know how many people have trusted in training up their kids on their own standards. And I don't know what your struggle is as far as trusting in yourself, but it's imperative that you trust in the one that created you, because He gave you instructions and gave you warnings, and there's warning labels in here, and there's step-by-step things on and how to do this. And I can honestly say that at this point in my life, I make mistakes all the time, because I think every one of us does. We're all made of the same stuff. But for me personally, I've started taking this and started taking it and applying the instructions, because like if you go buy a new wheelbarrow that's unassembled, and that's a very basic thing to try to put together, so most of us probably do it without instructions, but bear with me. We go buy a brand new wheelbarrow, if we don't read the instructions, we tend to end up going, I just listen in the first place, probably been a good idea. And the difference between that and this is like, we know that like we put it together, but we can go back and fix it, but this, we don't get to go back and necessarily fix it. We only got one shot with God. So who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust in how you want to do things, or are you going to trust in how God wants you to do things? Because see, when you start trusting God, He said, blessed is the man. So divine favor and happiness is found when you trust God, because He knows the difference. He knows what's good for us and what's not good for us. And as long as I trust God, I know that my life has been fruitful. There's times right now I'm laid off of work, but I know God. I trust God, and He's kept me working without even having a job, and that's the most wonderful thing I've ever seen in my life. Because when I didn't have God in my life, I always wanted to trust in my method of making money and the people that I knew. But God has much people in this city, and He's given me an opportunity to still work. And so Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, very, very famous, very popular verses in the Bible. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. And Matt talked about this earlier, and it's such a popular verse, but it's one of the most profound truths that there is. He says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. He said, trust me. Give me your heart. Trust me, give me your heart. Don't lean on how you think, because he said, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. I know better than you know, because I created you. I know how this works. Trust me, give me your heart. Acknowledge me in everything that you do, and I'll take you where you're meant to be. So, I just want to ask you who you're trusting tonight, and you don't have to answer me. You don't, do you trust this or do you trust this? Because really, like, I go in, like, I went into the probation department not long ago, and I look around, and there had to be 15 people going, still looking for the truth, like, and they're not finding it because, God's not in your phone. God really, he can be in here, but you got to trust him. And he's in here, but you got to trust it. You got to apply it, and you got to trust it. So, now I want everybody to close your eyes, okay? Nobody looking around, just close your eyes. And let's suppose that you owed some money. Let's say you owed a debt, okay? And let's pretend like you put your hands out as wide as you can, like you're going to give somebody a hug, but as wide as you can out to your sides, okay? And there's a point in your wrist where it's a bare spot. It's like in between your bones. I'm sure if you feel, don't open your eyes, just feel within your wrist. There's a little spot underneath your hand. It's like, it feels almost like a circle in a way, right? And imagine somebody putting you on a piece of wood, okay? And they took a 9-inch spike like a railroad tie, and they just started driving that thing into your wrist because you owed a debt, okay? And they hammer, first the left side, they just hammer, and blood's pouring out of your wrist. It's just pouring out of your wrist. And they hammer it all the way down to the head of the spike, gets to your wrist, and then they go to the other wrist, they go to the right side, and they do the same thing. And they take that spike and they drive it, and hammer, and hammer, and hammer. Imagine what that would feel like. Think about that for a minute. Let that soak in, how that would feel, okay? And then they take your feet and they put your feet on top of one another, okay? And you have 2 spots in your feet. I'm not going to ask you to bend over and touch your feet, but I'm sure you can imagine there's the same spot on your feet, okay? And they take this long 9-inch spike and they do the same thing to your feet. And that hurts too, Anybody's ever stubbed their toe and they can probably, man, that hurts a lot. Well, imagine a 9-inch spike going into both of your feet and being nailed into the wood. And you've been laying on your back the whole time, and then they take you and suspend you in the air, and you just hang there to die. That's exactly what the God of this world did for you. He came down from heaven and said, you know what? They owe a debt. I'm going to come and pay that debt and take the pain, the misery, the suffering, and all that. I'm going to take that, pay the debt that they owe so they don't have to bear that death. And that's what God did for each and every one of us. So, when I say trust, if you trust that, then you can know the God that created you. And if you trust that, and that alone, and trust that he did that for you, what a blessing. Probably the biggest blessing you'll ever receive in your life is eternal salvation. So, thinking about that, when you go home tonight, think about the one that did that for you and what you're going to do. Are you going to be the cursed man walking around doing it in your own strength, or are you going to trust in the one that said, I'm going to pay the price that they deserve to pay so that they don't have to live in that misery and that affliction anymore? Father, please help these people to understand that you love them. Lord, help us all to trust you more. Help us to be thankful. Help us to love people. Help us to love our enemies. Help us to love the people that maybe don't love us back. Help us to share your gospel message with the lost people, because it's good to be saved, but what good is it if we're not sharing it with other people? Jesus, thank you for paying the price for each and every one of us. Thank you for this program, and thank you for the wonderful turnout tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.